And this one's going to be about arrays and lists. They are both very much alike. I'm going to go ahead and start with arrays. And the reason for an array is so you can iterate through a certain type of variable easily, or the program can. So let's start out. I'll make a sub, my sub. Then in the app start, I'll just call my sub to get there. Okay, so I'm going to make an array. How about animal? And I'm going to have 3 different animals. And they are going to be strings. Okay, and animal, start with 0. That's the first array. Animal 0 is cat. Animal 1, which is the second one, is dog. Animal 2, which is the last one, is, how about zebra? And I can't do animal 3 because there is no 3. It says there's only 3 of them. So the last number you can't do. So if I said animal, if there's 4 of them, then I could have a third, or a 3, because there's actually 4 arrays, and there's 4, 0, 1, 2, and 3 is 4 different variables in the array. So I'm going to get rid of, I'm just going to do 3. Only going to be 3 of them, 0, 1, and 2. And now I'll just log them. And to do that, I'm going to do a for I equals 0 to 2 loop. And I'm just going to do log animal I. Okay, let's see what happens. Cat, dog, and zebra. So it worked. Now there's going to be times when you're doing arrays and you don't know how many different arrays you're going to have, because let's say I don't know how many animals. So in this case, I'm just going to have it looking like this, just the parentheses and no numbers in there. And I'm going to do it the same way, well, actually a different way. If you do it and you don't tell it how many different arrays you're going to have, then when you enter an item, do it this way. Animal equals an array as string, because it's going to be words. And I'm just going to do it, so go like this. It's going to be cat, comma, dog, comma, zebra. Okay, and then if I didn't know how many arrays or variables I was going to have in my array, then I would likely, when I output it, however I want to output it or use it, I wouldn't know exactly how many I was going to be outputting. So we need to do animal length and then -1, because the last one doesn't count. So it's always 0 through, well, in this case it's 0 through 2 because there's 3 items. And let's see what happens. Cat, dog, and zebra. So that worked too. And that's pretty much for arrays. I'm just gonna jump right into lists now, because I usually use lists more than arrays. If I can make it, I can make a list out of it, then I'll use a list instead. So I'm gonna, and the reason I do that, or I'll show you, it's just, for me it's easier anyway. So let's call it my list as a list. And when you want to use the list, you have to initialize it. So I'm going to use it right now. Initialize. And I'm going to add items to the list. So my list dot add, and the first item is going to be cat. And there's another way you could do my list add all, and that's going to be similar to adding multiple items to an array that you don't know how many variables are in the array. And we're going to do dog and zebra, and I forgot I have to say add all array as string, like that. So basically we're adding one item, such as add, and that's cat, and then next I'm adding multiple items, so I have to say it's an array as a string. So it's an array of strings. Okay, so now for I equals 0 to my list dot size, so whatever the size of the list is, -1, and then I'll just log. First I will say dim item as a string, and then I will have item equals my list get I. So whatever is at position I, which is going to be 0 through 2, then it's going to get that item, that string in this case. So I'm going to then log that item like this, and we'll run it. Cat, dog, zebra. So it's very much alike an array of variables, except you don't have to tell it how many you're going to have. You can always add to it, and you can subtract to it pretty easily too. It's a little easier to keep track of what's where. There's different things you can do with lists, like you can sort them. I'm going to do a my list sort, and I'm going to say false, so it's going to be opposite of alphabetical, and we'll go ahead and run it. Zebra, dog, cat, so that's backwards. And what else can we do? My list. We can remove items, but when you remove an item, it wants to know the index of the item. So to do that, first we're going to have to find the index. So index will be an integer. Whoops. As integer. And then index is my list index of, and this time I'm going to say dog. Where is dog? And wherever dog is located will be the index, and then I'll remove that index, and then it'll come down here and log what's left. Zebra and cat. So I remove the dog. There's other things you can do with lists, but that's the basics anyway. You can clear a list by get rid of everything that's in it. What else we got? Insert at. You can insert into the list at different places. This is looking for the index, and it wants to know the item that you're inserting. Sort, size. But anyway, that's the basics of it anyway. Let's see, one thing to keep in mind is any kind of variable can go into a list. So something that I've run into before is if I make a list, and let's say item as string, and let's say item is 10, and then my list add item. So it's going to add 10 to the list. I'm just going to get rid of this stuff right here. And then let's say we add item is 5, my list, add item. So now we added a 5. So notice that the items are strings, but I'm putting in item as string, but I'm putting in numbers. This is something I've done before. In my case, I was scraping a database and I was just entering as strings just to be, safe for whatever's there. And then I'm going to get rid of index for right now. I don't need to dim the item here because I did it up above. And I'm going to sort my list, sort true. So it should put everything in order. See what happens. But instead I put the 10 before the 5. And this is just because alphabetically I made it the items strings of the items of the list are in strings. So alphabetically a 1 comes before a 5. And then so it always looks at the, when you're doing something alphabetically, always look at the first usually letter, but in this case number, and it says, okay, the 1 comes before a 5, and then it looks at the next one. Well, 0, and it doesn't really actually look at the next one because it already sorted them by the first one. So you just want to make sure if my item was an integer, and then I put my item in there, my 2 items in there, and then I sorted them. Now we get a 5 before the 10, which is how it's supposed to be. So yep, just keep in mind you can put any type of variable into a list, and I recommend using them whenever you can. They're pretty easy to use after you have played around with them for a while, and you can with a list you can add multiple items that are even the same number. Like I could add, let's see, my list, add item. So now I have 5 that I added twice. You can add multiple items that are alike, so that's not a problem. But anyway, I think I'm going to stop it right there. That's pretty much the arrays and lists in B4J. Thanks.